All right, so welcome everybody. This is Leah Nygaard. She's our Disabilities Mental Health Coordinator at Head Start. And so she is going to do a presentation on IEP and disabilities information. So welcome Leah and welcome everybody else.
Hello, and I also am for GSRP and Early Head Start, but we are going, and the process is the same for all of them, for me anyway. So I'm going to share my screen. And then I can't see you anymore. Oh wait, now I can see you. I don't know if I'll continue to see you, but if you have a question, nope, can't see you anymore. So if you have a question, just shout it out and stop me at any time. It'll be very informal. I just want to get you some information, answer any questions you may have about kids with disabilities, kids that you may have concerns about, and kind of how we support that and how we help get them services. So it is disability supporting families and children. So I want to just review some facts about what a disability is. A disability is an impairment that might be cognitive, developmental, intellectual, mental, physical, sensory, or combination of multiple different things. In early childhood and the preschool age, we usually see them as identified as a speech delay or as a developmental delay, which is kind of a global category that covers most of those things. And then once they get a little bit older, they get reevaluated and they would fall into one of 13 categories or multiple of 13 categories, depending on what it is. It could be autism, otherwise health impaired, physical impairment, ADHD, things like that. So then you have disability, they end up with an IEP, an individual education plan. An IEP is a legal document. It spells out exactly what the school has guaranteed that they're going to provide for your child. School being the LEA, so that is the public school, which is overseen by MARISA, who is our educational service agency. If you move anywhere in the United States, you take that IEP with you, and any district that is in the US is required to provide those services that are written in that IEP. They may reevaluate your child and change the IEP based on what their assessments say, because each school district uses different assessments. And so then you'll have an IEP team. And so as appropriate, the child would be a part of that. At the preschool age, they are not usually a part of the IEP team. It's usually when they get a little bit older and they're learning how to advocate for themselves. So that leaves the parents or the guardians as the only advocate for that child. Everybody else is here to support them, but really it is your decision to say yes or no to the services that are offered to make sure that your child is going to be successful. Then you're going to have the regular education teacher, and at the preschool age, Head Start is a general education, regular education setting in Michigan right now. The school system representative, this is usually a disabilities coordinator or a principal sometime. The transition services agency representative, not always do we have MARISA at our IEPs, but sometimes they do show, especially if they're there for OT or PT evaluations. And so then the parents are there, and parents always, or guardians, have the final say if that IEP is going to be appropriate or going to be accepted. Parents have the right to refuse an IEP and ask for changes. Others with knowledge or special expertise about the child, this could be aunts, uncles, close friends, your pastor at church. I've had many other people that the parents request be at the IEPs. It could be your family advocate coming in to support you and the child and being able to help advocate for your family. Person who can interpret evaluation results is usually the therapist that has administered that evaluation, because they're their results, and so they can speak best for them. And then the intervention specialist or provider would be the ECSC classroom, the early childhood special education classroom, and that is where they would be getting services, or that would be the person that oversees the therapist coming to our classrooms if that is what is decided. So then for the little ones, there's an individual family service plan, an IFSP, and that's different than an IEP because this services children that are under 3 years old. So this could also be based on family goals, not always child goals. So once they turn 3, they would get evaluated for an IEP. Just because you have an IFSP does not mean you're going to have an IEP. And just because you have an IEP at preschool does not mean you're going to have an IEP by 2nd grade. We just know that children need more services, and 0 to 6 years old is really that huge time frame that children do the most learning. I mean, they start from infants, and in a year they're walking, talking, crawling. And so we just help them along as needed. So our process at Head Start and at Great Start, we always start with an initial home visit with the teacher. And at that time, the parent can request an evaluation if they have concerns. Sometimes we run into it where the parents have already brought it up to doctors or doctors to parents, and they want an evaluation right away. Then I would send the referral right away to the LEA, which is the public school, the local education agency. The parents, you may also call the school district to request an evaluation at any time. So in the middle of summer, when your child is 2 years, 9 months, you can call in for an evaluation. If you missed spring screening is one of the best times to have any concerns brought up, because it's always important to bring them to screening, because it is a collaborative with the public schools. So you have your speech therapist there, your OTs there, your PTs there. Marquette County Health Department is there to do a hearing and vision. We're there, so family advocates are there to help with enrollment into Head Start or Great Start. Usually I'm there, so if you're coordinating services between a dual enrollment, half time at Head Start or Great Start, and then half time in the ECSE classroom. If there are no concerns from the parents, but the child enrolls in Head Start, then they get a Bergantz screener done at the initial home visit. It covers your large motor, your fine motor, your language skills. If there's a cutoff score, and that score compares all children of that age in the country. So if your child is below that cutoff score, then those come to me and I start a concern, or and sometimes they wait until the end of period 1 while the teacher gathers and observes and gets more information about the child, and then we can identify any concerns. At that time, I would call you to see if you had grown, like in the areas of having concerns. And if not, I would still probably ask you for your child to be evaluated. Just because a child's evaluated does not mean that you're signing on for an IEP. It's just an evaluation to see what other assessments would say if they are age appropriate. Any concerns or questions? Not concerns, but questions. No? Okay. So the difference, the big difference between an IFSP and an IEP is that the IFSP focuses on the child. So we're not starting that referral. If it's an IFSP done through Early Head Start, the parents are making that referral over to Marisa themselves. I make the referrals over to the public schools for the IEP. So an IEP is an education document 3 to 21. IFSP is 0 to 3, actually pregnancy to 3, because it could be a family goal. So how it looks in our agency with supporting IEPs, we are considered Head Start, Great Start are the general education setting for all preschool age children in Michigan. We are a mainstreamed program, which means that we have kids with all abilities in our classrooms. Some kids are not identified with a disability yet. Some kids will be identified having ADHD. Some children will be identified having autism, speech delays, all kinds of different things. We are just that first step. And so we are a melting pot of all of these different children that come from different backgrounds and different things. And it is our jobs to kind of figure out how to make them successful. Sometimes that is referring out to the public school for an IEP. So even though we're offering children with disabilities the same learning opportunity as their peers, we may have to alter things. If we have a child that has a physical disability, then we alter our classroom to make sure that they can do the same things that their typical peers can. If there's a child that is deaf, we would figure out how to make sure that that child has enough signs, symbols, and things to fully participate as much as they can in the classroom. Our teachers support their IEP goals within our curriculum. Our curriculum is high scope, so it's plan, do, review, and there's different parts of our day. And so all of the IEP goals, like I said, are mostly based around speech or a developmental delay. So they're always constantly being worked on. If it's a fine motor goal, there's a lot of writing, manipulating, beating, Play-Doh, shaving cream, all kinds of different activities that would support that. Language, we are driven as a language rich environment. So communication is constantly happening in our classroom. We use visuals. We use all kinds of different models and schedules so kids know what's coming next, how to get, like, mapping out how to get dressed, how to sit safely at the carpet, how to follow the routine. And so in a lot of cases, our classrooms look like a special education classroom because we're both structured very similar. So then the teachers are also always asked to be at the IEP meetings. If they can't attend, I am always at the IEP meetings. Sometimes the LEAs forget to invite us. So it's important that the parents bring up that the child is in a general education setting at Head Start or at Great Start so that we can all be a part of that team, because sometimes the LEAs just don't know that kids are with us until after. But if we're invited and we know, then we can help parents to become advocates for their child, because sometimes the special ed world can be very daunting and very intimidating. So the stronger you are as an advocate and know those rights, that you have the final say and can stand up to those people, because sometimes there's 9 people in a room telling you what you should do with your child. It doesn't mean that you have to do that with your child. You know your child the best. So then family advocates are also part of our team. And so they are supporting parents become advocates for their child. Also, they may also attend the IEP as a parent support, like we've seen in that circle graph. And so they can help and to be a voice for the family. If you have any questions, you can go over with the family advocate or myself prior, and we can ask those questions if the parents don't always feel comfortable. And then they help you to understand the IEP. And if they have questions about the IEP, they can always call me, or parents can always call me. And then they're assisting to utilize outside resources. So they're able to connect you with things outside that would also possibly help your child to be successful. And then if in a normal year or a typical year, not in a COVID year, if you do not have a vehicle, we have agency vehicles that family advocates can sign out to transport a family to an IEP. This year, that is not possible, but we did work with the Mark Tran, and the Mark Tran did help in assisting a family get to and from an IEP. So then we have early Head Start home visitors. That is the 0 to 3-year-olds. So when they have an IFSP that is shared with the disability coordinator, which is myself, then the home visitor and the parents can use that IFSP to set goals, because sometimes they're parent goals and sometimes they're child goals. And the parents request, the home visitor can always attend the IFSP. Any questions with attending IEPs? No? Okay. So together we are all a team who are here to support your child so that they can be successful to prepare for kindergarten. Every child that comes into preschool is at their own level. They all come from different backgrounds. They all come from different routines. They all come from different places. And so every single child in Head Start is truly different from another child. So like I said, just because your child has an IEP right now does not mean they're going to have an IEP in 2nd grade. My kiddo, my personal experience, he had a speech delay. He did a dual enrollment placement. He was with Jacob at Head Start in the morning, and then he went to the early childhood special education class in the afternoon. He did that for a year and a half. He was sad to graduate his IEP by the end of kindergarten because he was all caught up. So now he's doing amazing in school, and I feel like it's because he got that extra help in Head Start and in ECSE. That label does not get carried through with them all the time. But if I didn't sign that IEP, he would not have gotten the services that he needed. So my job in all of this is I help to coordinate all of it. So I'm always at screenings if your child gets found to have any concerns there. I'm the first person that gets contacted with those Brigand screeners that the teachers do at the initial home visit. And that Brigand screener is different than an evaluation. evaluations are longer and more intense, and that is what the actual therapist would do. So if it's an occupational therapist, a physical therapist, or a speech therapist, our screener is just like a baseline that compares all the kids. If you have any questions or concerns, you can always contact me. My email is lnygaard@communityactionam.org, or my phone number is 906-869-0965. And then together, everyone achieves more. And it really is important to understand that and all realize that we all have the same goal. And it's always to make the child successful. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen and we can answer any questions.
I do have a couple of questions, Leah. So if a child,
I can't see you guys yet. Okay, I can see you now.
So my 2-year-old has an IFSP. It is in the center classroom. So how do I know that those teachers know what the early on goal is and that those things are being supported in the classroom?
So what you will see, so they always get a copy of the IFSP, and I know that classroom attain copies. I get all of the copies from the IFSPs and the IEPs from Marisa myself. And then once I get them, I enter them and make copies for the teachers. And then in your parent report, there should be goals that say IFSP goal, and then it should say after that how those teachers are supporting it. That is a required part of their core notes. So we don't track the actual numbers and the statistics that the IEP actually states, like 80% of the time the child will be successful with washing their hands or whatever the goal is. We're just going to say that we supported that IFSP by helping the child to wash their hands. So, all right. And
I had, can you just explain what an occupational therapist is?
So an occupational therapist is somebody that would help a lot of times with sensory needs. So if they have a lot of different things, we would call them the occupational therapist, and they work with a physical therapist, usually on fine motor, sensory, and type of things like that, large motor, engaging kids into eating, stuff like that. Sometimes it's a weighted spoon type of things, and they offer different strategies. And then a physical therapist would be working to walk and move those large motor muscles and those fine motor muscles. And the speech therapist would be the one that works solely on speech. And an ECSE teacher kind of works on all of those things in her contained classroom. Kids in an ECSE classroom all have an IEP. Kids in a Head Start classroom do not all have an IEP. So that would be their typical peers. And that is where a lot of children grow the most, is when they're with their typical peers versus a room full of children with delays. It is best of both worlds if they're doing both, because they get the services. If you're in an ECSE classroom, you have access to the PT, the OT, the speech therapist, the autism specialist, all the different resources. At Head Start, we don't have those. We can contract out sometimes, but it's easier if you're in that ECSE classroom to get them.
Leah, does this include, is this the same process for older children?
So an older child wouldn't be referred from us, but an older child would go through a very similar process. They would either get a referral or ask for an evaluation, be evaluated. They would sit down and have what's called a MET, and that would be where they decide if the child needed to be evaluated and what to evaluate them on. And then after the MET would come the evaluation, and then the IEP, where they would go over results, and then that parent or guardian would choose yes or no. I accept these services that you're offering, and I want you to do them with my child, or no, I don't accept these services, and this is what I want. And then there's also called a 504 plan, which is something kind of similar, but there's not actual services written into them. Most often a child with severe anxiety, ADHD, or something that needs maybe to leave the classroom to take sensory breaks or to do things as needed would get a 504. A 504 is just as legal as an IEP. Any other questions?
So with my son having the IFSP, what will be the process of deciding if he needs an IEP? Like, will we go through you, or will our early on person do that, or?
Early on, we'll refer you over to, we'll say Sandra Barnes, to MAPS. And then most often, it's a lot of times going to spring screening or doing it, just setting up an evaluation. And then he'll be evaluated and then start an IEP if needed, which then would still get sent to Head Start, and then we would still carry on to, you know, support those services. But even if you do the evaluation that way, I still recommend spring screening, because you get the hearing and the vision. You do not get hearing and vision often enough. And at the doctor's office, the vision test is like, stand in the hallway and what do you see? My son passed that 3 times, and he has glasses, because we didn't know he needed glasses until he went for an actual eye exam. So. But if they don't contact you, I would say by 2 years, 9 months, then start asking, when are we going to get there?
Yeah, because he's 2.5 this month.
Okay, so if in the next like 2-3 months, if they're not asking about transition plans and, you know, the next step, ask, because we did have a child on the West End that didn't get referred over, and now we're still really working hard to get him services with Ifsp. We're not sure why it just was never sent over. So
it's better to go through the evaluation process rather than wait and see how he does in Head Start. Was that what you would recommend?
Yep, because it's going to be faster. You're going to get the evaluations faster. If he's age appropriate, they're going to say he doesn't qualify. And then if suddenly he 6 months down the road still hasn't made gains or something, then we could still refer him. So they just cannot do the same evaluation twice in a calendar year. So if they did a certain speech evaluation, they would have to wait to do that speech evaluation. So, but it's always faster to get it before he leaves, because then you can have an IEP in place at any time. If you wanted to wait and see, that is still totally fine too. Like, you don't have to. Like I said, parents and guardians always have the final say. Any other questions?
I don't think so. Thanks for all the information, Leah.
Not overwhelming. Let me know if you have any more. Always around. Call or text.
I'm sure lots will come up for me, because I'm navigating a process I haven't navigated before.
Right? I'm here. I can help you through it. Actually, I'll go observe him next week. So.
All right, perfect. Well, we will end it. And thanks everybody for joining us tonight.
All right. Thanks, ladies. Have a good evening.
You too. Bye, everyone.